of how the adherents of that religion ought to live their life. Can you have one wife, 4 wives, one husband, 9 husbands? That's in the ethical and the moral realm. The third aspect of a religion is the inspirational and the emotional. Now, every religion moves its adherents in a very powerful way. And I remember as a child my father telling me that OUPakSoc, he's the first person who translated the Quran into English. He wrote that when I hear the azan, when I hear a verse from the Quran, I feel moved to tears. And my father would read that passage again and again, and then he'd actually burst into tears. It's clear that religion has enormous emotional consequences for humans. I remember hearing Professor Abdus Salam, the only Pakistani to have got a Nobel Prize, he got it in physics, telling an audience that he was moved to discover the theory, to discover the unification of forces by looking at the Badshahi Mosque. He said, I looked at it from one angle, I looked at it from the other angle, I could see how the minars folded into each other. He saw the symmetry. He said, that's what inspired me into SU2 cross U1. Being a little technical. So these are 3 aspects of religion: metaphysical, the ethical and the moral, and the inspirational and the emotional. And frankly, science has nothing to say about it. No, they don't have a problem with that. If you are inspired by the Badshahi Mosque in Lahore and you come up with a grand theory of physics, all power to you. But remember, Steven Weinberg also got the Nobel Prize, and he's an atheist. And actually he did the work a little before Salam did, but Salam didn't know that, and Weinberg didn't. They had no connection between them. Science doesn't matter. Science doesn't care about where your inspiration comes from. It cares about testability. So these are 3 aspects of any religion that science is okay with. No problem with that. What it's not okay with is when any religion makes assertions about the physical world. And so, if Archbishop Usher, can I have some water? If the famous Archbishop Usher says that the world began on the 4th of October, which was a Sunday, 4004 BC, well, sorry, science is not going to accept that. If there are assertions of spirits and genies anywhere, in any book, and they are to be used for energy generation, well, science is not going to accept that. Science is not going to accept miracles. Science is not going to accept the suspension of physical law for any reason whatsoever. The point is that from Galileo to Sayyid Ahmad Khan, the position of those who wish to retain faith and religion has had one constant refrain, and it's that the revealed books tell us how to go to heaven, but it's science which tells us how the heavens go. Science will tell you how the planets move. Science will tell you what's inside atoms and how they excite, de-excite, whatever. But, okay, science is not going to tell you how to go to heaven. So let's keep the 2 separate from each other. Finally, I want to address the question, what's the way forward? let's provisionally accept that the religious impulse originally propelled science in Islam. And those who make this argument say that Muslims did astronomy because they wanted to find the way of moving towards towards Qibla, the direction in which you must pray. They invented superior methods of timekeeping because they needed to know accurate times for the 5 prayers. Arithmetic and algebra was invented and arithmetic was improved because of the complex system of Islamic inheritance. But if one takes that, frankly, there's no need for science in Islam anymore, because these days with GPS, you can get to what? Within a centimeter, wherever you want to get. You have atomic clocks which tell you to a billionth of a second the correct time, and so forth. So that's not going to be an argument anymore. So what's needed? And to my mind, the most important thing is educational reform. You need a different concept of knowledge. It's not that knowledge is a static corpus of facts. It's not that all knowledge is contained in a holy book. If knowledge is confined to that, well, human progress stops. So obviously you need educational reform. And in fact, I think nobody anywhere in any part of the Muslim world will disagree with that. The problem is that the meaning of reform is something that's highly disputed. The real question to my mind is, can this kind of reform be dead? Can this form of reform be performed, given the dead hand of tradition? As long as we lie under that hand, that heavy hand, it's going to be very, very hard. Of course, I'm not saying this. I'm not the only one saying this. It's been said so beautifully by some of the great poets of the subcontinent. I know there are people over here who don't understand Urdu, but there is an Urdu poem that I'd like to read out. It's by Josh Maliabadi. A man who's pretty much forgotten. People have heard of Faiz, of Faraz, and of course Muhammad Iqbal and so forth, but here's a man who's probably one of the greatest poets of Urdu. Some say he is the greatest, but he's been utterly forgotten. I'll read out one of his poems to you. It's called Murdon Ki Dhoom, Cacophony of the Dead. मखलूक को दीवाना बनाए हुए मुर्दे, यारों को के दिमागों को चुराए हुए मुर्दे, ओहाम के तूफान उठाए हुए मुर्दे, अक्लों को मज़ारों पे चढ़ाए हुए मुर्दे, आफाक को सर पर हैं उठाए हुए मुर्दे, देखो कि क्या धूम मचाए हुए मुर्दे. I'll give you a rough translation. The dead drive our people mad. The dead steal the minds of the living. The dead unleash mighty storms of superstition. The dead trap us in tombs and morgues. The sky too belongs to the dead. Look, listen to the cacophony of the dead.